Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it. So let's waste no time. Ooh-wee! Let's get to it. Story number 1. Saying goodbye to the Fieldhouse, South Fieldhouse. David Skolnick has a report updating the local community on the proposals to demolish the vacant South High Fieldhouse. And what the article goes on to explain will be a plan to take down the West Avenue Bridge and improve downtown streets. Now, the legislation would allow for the demolition of the Fieldhouse at 1840 Erie Street along with the outdoor bleachers. Now, according to the report, council looks to appropriate $301,000 from the city's demolition fund for the work. Now, the article goes on to explain how the city will sell the site to the Valley Legends Stadium Consortium, a branch of Valley Christian Schools, to build a proposed $9 million stadium with 3,000 seats with a turf football field and track in 2 phases. It's an outside track, probably clay. Now, the article is filled with project plans for this particular area, which has sat dormant for quite some time. That's what story number 1 made of this week. Story number 2. The rescue mission is very important this time of year, if you did not know, especially when it's cold. The homelessness problems continue. They continue to be a nagging issue locally and in major cities across America, probably the world. Now, one report out of WFMJ goes as far as explaining how an $8,800 check has been given to the rescue mission to help those in need. Now, if you did not know, the rescue mission supports 186 people who stay there on a nightly basis while also providing over probably 400 meals daily to the facility. Folks, this is what's stated in the report. Let's get the story to the top 8. So story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3. Joann Fabrics is closing some local stores. Joann Fabrics has crept into the top local headlines and what appears to be a plan to close approximately 500 stores nationwide, including some stores, a store in Boardman and Niles. It's pretty sad. I was just there, folks. This is all taking place as many local retailers continue to struggle, folks. This story made it in because of that particular reason. Local retailers and retailers across America that have been in business for years are in the bankruptcy lines. That's what story number 3 made it this week. Story number 5. Youngstown and the YNDC relationship. Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation. Shane Barron has a report published February 13th focusing on the push for more housing and building in Youngstown, these hard economic times. Now, the entire report homes in on the YNDC projects that have been taking shape on the city's south side. Now, the entire report is filled with groundbreaking information and partnership gatherings to meet to the needs of those looking for housing development in Youngstown. The report also talks about the current phases taking shape and how the most recent projects will cost about $2 million. Now, a lot of community leaders are eager to see the results of this still trending story when it comes to a nonprofit organization that is able to obtain land for redevelopment in a city that has so many potential development sites. Folks, this story is still developing because Youngstown is in the land grab. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5, $1 million for aviation. Zach Mosca has a report out of WFMJ explaining how WRPA is securing $1 million in funding to launch an aviation education center at the Youngstown Airport. That's what the headline reads. Now, it goes on to explain how the goal is to impact the future workforce by providing career pathways to the aviation industry. Now, the funding stream comes from some major departments, thus getting this story into the top 8. That's why story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6, zooming in on East Palestine Health clinic data. Stephanie Olvert has a report out of the Vindicator published February 14th. Now, the article explains how $750,000 will go to the East Liverpool City Hospital for its East Palestine Health Clinic. Now, the article explains how the clinic will be placed within the East Palestine community with the goal of ensuring that residents will be able to continue to access this convenient healthcare resource in their community long after the cleanup. The anniversary was in February, beginning of this month. Now, the report goes on to explain how the clinic is still in its evolution phase. The article is long and really highlights the full potential when it comes to being able to have a dependable healthcare facility in East Palestine to assist with the aftermath of the train derailment that happened sometime 2 years ago. Well, I believe it was 2 years ago, sometime early this month. That's why story number 6 almost made to the top 2 this week. Big. Story number 7 of the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Extra, read all about it. Stories for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you do want to check out the show on Mondays, if you don't get up this early, I do upload the show to the website on Mondays. So if you don't get up this early, you can check out the website, and the show is up on our YouTube channel. Let's get to this top story. Story number 7. After the East Palestine story, let's show us some love to East Palestine. Story number 7. Where did $82.7 million in ARP funding go when you talk about Youngstown? No, it's not a bad news story. It's just information. David Skolnick has an entire rundown of Youngstown's ARP spending published February 15th. Now, the biggest spending was on neighborhood and economic development at $27,538,965 and $14 million on city council council members' projects. He allotted some money for the wards. Now, according to City Finance Director Kel Miasak, the funding paid for 107 projects. Now, the article states that Mayor Jamel Tito Brown is pleased with how the money was spent. The article is a must-read for those wanting to know how the money was spent, the ARP money. Now, if you did not know, $2,868,011 of the money was spent on crime prevention. How ironic. That's why story number 7 also made it to the top this week. Big. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week for you. Yes, to keep you informed. If you do want to show some support, folks, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio, or visit the website, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or sponsor a program. You can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. Some people always ask me, Brian, are you a Christian? Do you love Jesus? And I look at them and I say, yes, I believe that there is a loving God that we all must serve and answer to out of all faiths and religions. Story number 8. 2000 to 2025 budgets take center stage. Folks, Raymond L. Smith has a report published February 14th out of the Vindicator, keeping regional budget discussions in top headlines. This story made it in because many local communities struggled to meet budget goals after and during the pandemic. If you did not know, folks, this has led to cuts being made, and some communities are still in financial emergency situations, if you did not know that either. Now, although some communities were given relief money, in some areas large sums of money came up missing or was misused. Folks, the story by Smith highlights how Trumbull County is attempting to trim more than $81 million in budget requests from the general fund department. Now, the consistent and the constant push to control spending in a tight economy still has the story trend. That's what story number 8 made to the top this week. Well, folks, there are top 8 local headlines developing news stories that made this week. I'll bring back the top 8 international headlines developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. The Mediator to be Bro West. I'll bring it back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, highlighting Black History Month, and it's coming to a conclusion. Folks, if you did not know, Black History Month was thought of and founded in America by President Gerald Ford in 1976. He chose February because it was the month of Abraham Lincoln's birthday, and I believe it was Frederick Douglass's birthday. I believe they were this month. I believe Frederick is on the 14th, if you did not know. And it made me aware because of I live in a community that is mixed. You know, Youngstown and Mormon is mixed with it's probably almost half and half blacks and whites. So I see a lot of things that happen, and I love my customers. One of the biggest contributors to my store that I have that serves this community. I've been serving this community for over 17 years. I came back when I got out of the military, but I have a friend, Mrs. L. I'm not going to say her name, but she's been going through a lot, and we orchestrated the Black History Month program last year. Every year there's somebody different who I orchestrate a Black History project for, and this year people, I'm not going to lie to you, African Americans are exhausted. And I can say all of them, or most of them are. She particularly has been, you know, the reports that I get into the studio here is that black people are taking their anger out on other black people. Now, this is real, folks. And they're killing other black people. They're upset with white people, but they're hurting their own people. She comes into the store all the time, and this woman is a God-fearing woman. You know, this is what Black History Month has become. It has become so exhausting that people don't even want to celebrate their own black history anymore because they're afraid of the consequences that it could have on the division and the divisiveness of reality. And the fact is that we all, and if you look at the historical facts, stem from Africa, blacks and whites. But there's a problem in America. Oh, Miss L, she's been exhausted. She says the relationship that she's had, even with people in her community and her church, have been bitter. The people have gotten conflicted and divisive, and they want wealth and power, and they're just doing anything but destroying their own people just to get it. Selling drugs and going to court and lawsuits for property. It's crazy. And they're hurting their ex-girlfriends, and it's brutal out here. And white brothers are looking at black brothers, and black brothers are looking at white brothers, trying to get things ironed out. Folks, I was not able to have a trip this year or a Black History program because of the simple fact. Last year I wanted to take a bus, and people started getting all divisive, and I don't have no money, and you don't want to do this. People have gone crazy. Folks, I don't really think much has changed, but you know, I mean, you think about it, a long time ago in this country, blacks were enslaved, whipped, beaten, demoralized, defeated, and we've reached a point now where blacks are doing this to each other. They don't want to join hands, don't want to celebrate their own history. There's no unity, there's no love. You go on YouTube, that's all you see is blacks fighting over money, power, fame, and the children don't know where to turn to. You wonder why they can't get educated, because this is the reality. Once again, we're left alone, confused. No home, no love. We have a home, but we don't know if we're wanted, folks. This is reality, folks. Whew. Sing a song. Amazing grace, how sweet are Democrats and fighting with Republicans, Democrats and fighting with Republicans. Did the Democrats and the Republicans do this or no? Did the Republicans fight for war, but did the Democrats say, we don't know? Because we are divided, folks. this Black History Month, a shot goes out to those trying to keep the flames lit. Well, folks, let's waste no time. How sweet the sound, amazing grace. Let's get to it. Story number one. How much are natural disasters costing? Outside of Black History Month, the natural disaster thing. Okay, Herald Leader has a report focusing on how at least 8 people are dead in a historic Kentucky flood after yet another emergency disaster has been declared. Folks, if you did not know, according to Google AI, the number of billion-dollar weather and climate disasters in the United States has increased over the years with an average of 9 events per year from 1980 to 2024. Now, from 2020 to 2024, it increased 23 events per year. Now, in 2024 alone, 27 weather and climate disasters were over $1 billion in losses and occurred, resulting in 568 deaths, folks. These disasters have cost the U.S. $2.9 trillion since 1980. So story number one. Story number two, Ukraine, Russia, and the world. The Guardian has a report focusing on how the U.S. and Russia have agreed to explore mutual opportunities of ending the war with Ukraine, which has sparked the concern of allies and the global audience. What has this story trending is the fact that no Ukrainian or European officials were at the table in what appears to be a peace settlement that favors Vladimir Putin. That's what the story says. Now, the war, which has sucked just about every nation with resources in, has now somehow made Trump the center of attention for some comments that he made about Zelensky being a dictator. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number two made it. Story number three, Trump's foreign policy plans are in top headlines. MSNBC has a report stating in one of its top stories that is written by Chris Hayes that Trump's foreign policy vision is worse than we may have imagined. Now, although the report holds nothing back, it mainly places Trump as disassembling the U.S.-led international order, while in the process benefiting global authoritarians, in which the report says he envies and admires. Now, it's clear that the current position that Ukraine is in with Russia and NATO, that this is what has Trump's foreign policy agenda in the spotlight. Now, the reality is that both sides have common interests that sparked Putin to pull the war card, and whatever Putin wants, he needs to come clear with it, because his decision is breaking the world's banks and Russia's, unless he's got some money under the table. Now, this story will keep Trump's foreign policy in top headlines, his agenda, if he has one. Now, the article succeeds at getting the reader to understand what is really at stake in this whole ordeal when it comes to Trump's foreign policy plan. That's story number three made it this week. Story number four, how cutting back on government affects the D.C. economy. CNBC has a report on how unemployment spiked in Washington, D.C. This is as Trump and Elon Musk began efforts to shrink the government. This one headline shows a ripple effect that may have not been expected. Now, if you didn't know, jobless filings in Washington, D.C. surged to 1,780 for the week ending February, which is a 36% increase from the prior week. Now, the report goes on to say that nearly 4,000 workers in the city have filed for unemployment insurance. So in the process to trim America's spending, D.C. is already suffering. This is all in the process of Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia businesses. They were already requesting for federal workers to return back to the office to help the D.C. economy. Folks, this is yet another story that's still developing. Story number four made it this week. Well, folks, are our top four international headlines developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top four. So don't you go anywhere. The Mediator, me, Brother West. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top four international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, celebrating and honoring the last week of Black History Month. Like I said before, it was founded by President Ford in 1976, And there's been a long line of stories. And that's why I've got to get up and celebrate those who have affected me, some of my customers. I remember my one customer, Miss Erlene, and she was really into plays. And she was so into plays that she was militant in theater. She wanted to have successful plays. And even though her plays were about drama, I highlight some of the customers and the people that I've crossed paths with in my community that have been involved with Black History Month. Some of the people I've seen. And she would tell her daughter, get on stage and act out this play as if you were Joe Jackson spinning around with Michael Jackson. And yes, Black History Month, I acknowledge those who have contributed locally and across America. Even if you are urban, some people who may not have all of the credentials, you're still loved and you still have a place in the Black history and American books. Even me and all of my fragile, unnecessary sometimes excitement. Well, that's it. Black History Month is almost over. And here's my final song. Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. If Democrats or Republicans can save me, Lord, Kumbaya. I'm just a little man, Lord, Kumbaya. Oh, Lord, bless me, Lord. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Shout out to all the local historians, reverends, playwrights, and little old Brian. Story number 5. All eyes on Elon Musk, folks. Several headlines have all eyes on Elon Musk. The Hill says that Elon Musk is coming for your Social Security. If that's true or not, yet to be known. Now, the Hill has another headline claiming that Fetterman of Pennsylvania is not happy with Elon over DOGE, and his plans for the IRS. He's not happy. Now, the report is worth a read because it gives readers a different angle on Elon, which is very interesting. Now, the question is, if you were a billionaire yourself, still making business moves, and on top of that, as of December of 2024, you were labeled the richest man in the world. Why would you decide to work for free and obtain some very sensitive information that takes years for even the most basic government officials to obtain? Folks, the article succeeds at opening up the reader's IQ when it comes to security clearances and on what is taking place here in America. Now, it goes on to explain the scenario when Dwight Eisenhower, who was a Republican and a war hero, he warned in 1954 of the outcome when a handful of Texas oil millionaires attempted to abolish Social Security. Now, the article also explains Musk's opinion when it comes to Social Security. The fact that Elon is now sitting aside the president speaking from the Oval Office by appointment is what got this story in, and now has all eyes on Elon Musk because he's not elected, but he's appointed. That's why story number 5 made it. Story number 6, the debt issue. Fortune has a report that homes in on how Trump's trade war could spiral into a debt war that sends interest rates soaring. This is according to a White House official. Now, the article basically coins Trump's tariff plans as a gamble that could backfire, but only time will tell. Trump may see this as a win in the long run, but Americans are already suffering with high prices. The entire article displays a back and forth with China that could go terribly wrong. Folks, this story is still developing. So story number 6 also made to the top 2 this week. Big story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, if you don't get up this early, you can catch the show on the website on the screen. I upload it on Monday. Story number 7. There are 2 sides to the Doge coin, D-O-G-E. Doge, to those who are for it, has pulled the curtain behind the spending spree. Doge, to those who are not for it, may see it as a rich man's game that tips the scales for a minute, but with with accusations comes answers that either way could reveal a sinister plot that everyone already expected but could never prove. Now, sadly, it may also come at a very odd time in American history. While each class of the American fabric is already in a financial mess when it comes to consumption and spending. Folks, this is at a time when the Washington Post has an entire piece on how Musk is seeing access to taxpayer data, and he was seeking access to taxpayer data and could be seeking more. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 7 was made to the top this week. Big news. Story number 8 to the top. International headline and developing news story that I made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you do want to show the social support, it does not take much. All you do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor the program. Or you can stop by the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. Story number 8. If government has the power, what happens if the cord is cut? If you did not know, government programs have been cut in the past. Social welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, education funding, job training initiatives, legal aid, and certain aspects of healthcare, all occurring during the Reagan administration, which emphasized reducing government spending. Now, we got the story in is what occurred in the process. Reagan was almost assassinated, and the cuts disproportionately affected low-income individuals, minorities, and people with disabilities. Now, the rationale behind this, according to Google AI, is the need to reduce the national deficit and promote fiscal responsibility. Now, the fact that cutting the cord on people who are already unfortunate while in the process draining the middle class and taxing the rich to foot the bill is a process that has capitalism, government policy, and activists concerned about uncertainty. Folks, this story is still developing because it appears that Trump sees an opportunity to pay the bills with tariffs and program cuts, cutting the government. That's what story made to the top this week. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets and journalists and people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your story just to keep people informed. If you do want to show some support, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program, or you can stop by the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. See my smiling face. Well, folks, I am out of here. I hope you had a good Black History Month, and I hope you learned a lot about American history and Afro-American history. I'm out of here. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator. Be Brian West. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.